Olá, meus amores! Antes de tudo, gratidão por você estar presente para mais um conteúdo. Eu estou passando aqui rapidinho para lembrar de curtir agora esse vídeo, se inscrever no canal, ativar o sininho para não perder nenhum vídeo incrível que trazemos aqui para você. Combinado? Agora, apertem os cintos, entre na nave estelar e bora pra aventura!
I was shown hovering car. Yes, these vehicles hovering above the ground, and the nature was repaired. The earth was so clean and the air so clean. There was no more fossil fuels pollutions, no more hydrocarbons. Carburants. No, it was all. It's like the earth was repaired and healed, and nature was happy because everything was about anti-gravity and 0 point energy. I saw that, and then after the looking glass device, I had a little chat with Haben, the commander of the ship, and he said, "Come on, I'm going to show you something." And he took me to a room on the ship. There were a lot of computer machines and with holographic screen, and there were people, Proxima Centaurians, working on these screens, and there were blueprints of could have been these cars. It could look like futuristic cars, but all with blue lines, like holographic. And they were working on that. And Haben told me the cars you've seen in 20 years' time, they are actually being mass produced. A lot of them on the moon, but also somewhere else, for when the Terrans, the Earth people, are ready. This will be implemented massively, like everywhere in one go, because everything will be ready. It's been produced now. They're waiting the right moment to implement them.
You are listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
It's my great pleasure to welcome back Elena Danaan to Exopolitics Today. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you, Michael. I'm very happy to be on your show again.
Oh, that's an impressive T-shirt you got there. What is that? Space Force.
Space Force, yes. I'm getting ready for
okay, with the
what's coming.
US insignia and everything.
Yes.
That is cool. Well, very interesting developments recently, and Space Force is at the center of it, so that's very appropriate what you're wearing.
Yes, indeed.
So I thought it'd be good to go back a little bit to your earlier career, because, I mean, you worked as an archaeologist in Egypt, and
Yes.
just a few days ago, you had this remarkable announcement that there was a new tunnel that was found in the pyramid, in the Great Pyramid, and that because you actually have worked there, I'm just going to put up a screen share so that way you can see. I mean, there it is. That's the Great Pyramids. I mean, 3 of them, and of course, you have this new discovery. So, do you want to kind of like just explain to the audience exactly what the significance of this discovery is?
Well, it's the first time since the opening discovery of the Pyramid of Cheops that such a thing is found. This first was detected by muon radiography, so a void was already detected. But then they found this entrance to this tunnel, which goes to 30 meters deep, and very well constructed, 2 meters large. It's absolutely astounding. The whole world is, hold their breath for that. What it means is that it leads to somewhere. It's not a shaft, it's a tunnel where you can walk in. And that's very impressive. And that leads to somewhere in the pyramid. Because when you see all the mass of the pyramid with only the few we know of 3 corridors and 2 rooms, there is way more than that. And the pyramid is connected to an underground labyrinth city, you know, much more ancient. So it was very interesting for me, who have worked in Egypt, and especially a short while with Dr. Zahi Hawass, to witness something very interesting that not many could have picked up, because I knew what it was about. There was this announcement and at the feet of the pyramids, and this Egyptian official said, "Oh, the experts have decided that it's discharge corridor for the weight of the pyramid, and something architectural without no meaning, especially." But Zahi Hawass comes after and says, "I don't believe that. It's not a discharge corridor. It's a real corridor that leads to somewhere, and that leads to great discoveries." And see in the coming weeks what I say. Zahi Hawass knows. He knows what's inside. He's been many times underneath the plateau. He knows it very well. He's been underneath the Sphinx, in the Sphinx, everywhere. He knows. If someone knows there, it's him. But every time during the last decades, every time he tried to make an announcement, when he actually made announcements, we found a shaft in the Sphinx, we found tunnels under the Sphinx, etc., etc. A week later, every time, he was obliged to deny publicly what he had said. And I know that that is because there are powers behind archaeological sites in Egypt. And I can say it frankly, it's the Freemasons. They own the sites, main sites in Egypt. Why? Because the sites they own have access to power, to technology that they would really like to use, you know. So that's what I can say, Michael.
Well, that's very important. It gives us a background into discoveries under Egypt's pyramids, that this has been suppressed for decades by the Freemasons. And you know, this is something that I remember William Tompkins, the Secret Space Program insider, he said the same, that the Freemasons are controlling all of these discoveries, and he knew of Egypt's discoveries being kind of like being kept secret by the Freemasons. And also Radu Cinema in his Transylvanian book series saying the same thing. And of course, you directly experienced that. But
Yes.
what makes us, or what makes you feel that this announcement and Zahi Hawass saying that, again, something spectacular may be at the end of this tunnel, what makes you think it's different this time around? What do you think's happened?
I think it's different this time around because besides the fact that we know that the Freemasons are losing power and grip on things, that's all supposition from the events. That intervention of Zahi Hawass gives me hope, because he contradicts publicly live the Egyptian official. That wouldn't have happened like 10 years ago or a few years ago even. It wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have done that, because he would have faced consequences. So that makes me believe that something good is going to come out of it, that effectively a discovery may be at the end of the tunnel. But that also comes right after the Raven Rock meetings, and my belief that both are links. We're going to talk about that, I suppose, later. The both, to my understanding, may be linked because on the 1st of January 2023, just 2 months from now when we are speaking, I received messages from my contact in the Galactic Federation of Worlds and High Commander Ardana At the end of her message to humanity, she said for 2023 that there would be, as she said, focus on the pyramids. There would be an opening in a pyramid, and it will be linked with a knowledge coming that is related to islands in your oceans. So I thought about Atlantis, probably. So she said that, and a week later, on the 7th of January, the Raven Rocks meetings. I think it's all part of a disclosure plan. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's my feeling.
Right. I think it's very important that we understand the kind of signals on the announcements that have been made by your contacts, and how that kind of prepares us for these kinds of revelations that are coming. And of course, you mentioned Commander Adana, High Commander Adana from the Galactic Federation, talking about look to your pyramids, look to the pyramids, or focus on the pyramids, and talking about the islands in the oceans in relationship to the pyramids, and that is clearly an allusion to Atlantis. And of course, you know, there have been many stories of Atlantean technologies being taken to Egypt and being placed under the pyramids. So it seems that we are on the verge of this information coming out. And, you know, many predicted this. Edgar Casey predicted that at the end of the 20th century, that the Atlantean information buried in the Hall of Records there under the Sphinx would be revealed, but it never happened. So something has changed. And of course, you mentioned the Freemasons suppressing all of that. They've lost their power. So something has changed. And of course, this takes us to this very important meeting at Raven Rock that you saw through the eyes of Thorhan. So you just want to remind people of, you know, exactly what you saw, how it happened that Thorhan allowed you to see what was unfolding there at Raven Rock?
Yes, it was on the 7th of January, 6th or 7th, I can't remember, 7th probably. I around midday received this communication from Thorhan, my contact. And he said he wanted to show me through his eyes. We can do that. I have an implanted device that allows us to look through each other's eye when we decide to, when he does that remotely. So, okay, you want to show me something. And he was standing in the Blue Ridge Mountains. He showed me, it was very important that I remember, I really visualized the landscape. The Blue Ridge Mountains were kind of even, not flat, but even, all the ridge. And he said that will allow me to locate the place. And he was at the, the exit of a shaft leading to a landing bay for spaceships. Then he showed me, he connected with me briefly when he met with a general. So I thought first it was a 5-star general because there were 5 shiny things on his shoulder. I saw his shoulder. In fact, it was 4 stars and a button. And I was a bit misled, but because I wasn't focusing on counting the stars, it was just, you know, because I was focusing on the device Thorhan was giving to this general. And this general, I identified it off a list of 44 generals that you sent me afterwards. You know, I'm French, I live in Ireland. I know nothing about who's who in the American army, military, you know, and which is even better. I was more objective to identify him. And I was sure, I said to you 98, 99% that could be this man. And you told me who he was afterwards. So why Thorhan just had to go hand in hand to meet this person to give him this device? It was a flat, long device. Yes, here we go. And with a little shiny button, something. And this device, I was told afterwards by Thorhan, it contained new plans for updated plans for disclosure. about extraterrestrial interactions with humans and the secret space program. And there's also blueprints of advanced technologies in it. So this was given to this general and the Earth Alliance. But it was given hand to hand, which is quite unusual because, you know, they can send communications to each other. That means that needed not to be interfered. It was the safest way, was hand to hand.
Yes, that is a really safe way of relaying what was a very important piece of information. I mean, the disclosure plan, obviously you would not want that to fall into the hands of the deep state. And so it had to be personally delivered to General Van Herk, who is the commander of US Northern Command and of NORAD. So those are the two commands that are really responsible for all of North America in the event of any kind of an attack. And so he's a very significant 4-star general. Now, I mean, you say you saw what was happening within this Raven Rock Mountain complex through the eyes of Thorhan. Did you recall, or did you hear anything about their conversation? You know, what did Thorhan say as he handed this device over to General Van Herk?
I didn't catch the sound, the conversation. I could hear Thorhan talking to him, but it was like muffled, like if I needed not to hear, the sound was muffled. But I had the sound, but I didn't catch what Thorhan was saying to him.
Do you remember if there were other people in the room? Was it like a crowded room? Was it like a kind of national security environment? You know, what do you remember about other people in the room? A lot of military, civilians?
No civilians. The room was quite dark. It was quite a twilight. Behind the general, behind him on his right, there was a door with a little light on the top of the door, above the door, like a yellow lamp, light bulb, lighting for the door. But the rest of the room was in kind of penumbra, and there were people. I know there were men. I could feel. I don't know why. I can tell it was men in dark blue uniforms, lot of shiny buttons, but of course, and caps. But it was like shadows. It was really in the shadow. Couldn't tell more, but it was militaries. Yes, 4-6 people maybe.
Okay. Well, you know, we know that device that he handed over to General Van Herk was containing some kind of disclosure plan. So, you know, that takes us to some recent developments, like with Donald Trump, the president or the former president, depending on what perspective you take, former or current, is he gave a speech where he talked about new technologies coming on board, and this involved, he talked about personal vertical takeoff landing craft, which is a flying car. I mean, he's talking about flying cars and new cities being built all over the United States with all of these amazing new technologies. So, I mean, that speech just kind of came out the last few days. So do you want to talk a little bit about that speech and what you think might be the connection to this Raven Rock disclosure plan?
Yes, well, when I heard about that today, we're on with the 4th of March as we're recording this today. I was excited. I went, oh my goodness. And that took me back to December 16, 2022, when I was invited physically on board Meton, Proxima Centauri mothership. And on this ship, there is a looking glass device. I tried it for the second time, and they showed me Earth in 20 years' time. And I straightly made a video about that to record the date and the moment. I was shown hovering car. Yes, these vehicles hovering above the ground, and the nature was repaired. The earth was so clean and the air so clean. There was no more fossil fuels pollutions, no more hydrocarbons, no, you know, it was all it's like the Earth was repaired and healed, and nature was happy because everything was about anti-gravity and 0 point energy. I saw that, and then after the looking glass device, I had a little chat with Haben, the commander of the ship, and he said, "Come on, I'm going to show you something." And he took me to a room on the ship. There were a lot of computer machines and with holographic screen, and there were people, Proxima Centaurians, working on these screens, and there were blueprints of could have been these cars. It could look like futuristic cars, but all with blue lines, like holographic. And they were working on that. And Haben told me the cars you've seen in 20 years' time, they are actually being mass produced. A lot of them on the moon, but also somewhere else, for when the Terrans, the Earth people, are ready. This will be implemented massively, like everywhere in one go, because everything will be ready. It's been produced now. They're waiting the right moment to implement them. So reminded me that. And Raven Rock, the updated disclosure plan, new technologies, it's all part of the same plan of the good star people, as we could call them.
Yeah, there does seem to be a really amazing synchronicity here with this Donald Trump announcement and the plan that was handed over to General Van Herk at Raven Rock. And Alex Collier, our mutual friend, I mean, he did one of his webinars on Friday, and he said something. That's Friday, March the 3rd, yesterday. And he said something really interesting. He said that according to the information he got from the Andromedans, that what was seen in the future in terms of Earth's development, like you saw, the Proxima Centaurians showed you 20 years into the future. He said that the Earth Alliance, that the white hats, the military white hats, know what the future is, and what they're doing is reverse engineering that. And I thought that was really, really quite insightful, that if you know what the future is, that literally all you need to do is to just like reverse engineer that. So, that makes me question, well, are the contents of that device that Thorhan gave to General Van Herk just the Galactic Federation, the Andromeda Council kind of putting together their ideas for how to reverse engineer the future so that it happens right now?
I think it's very possible, because time, the factor of time is part of their science and their everyday life, a concept that is very difficult to grasp on Earth with our linear time. But when you're not on Earth, it's quite mind-blowing, sometimes difficult to understand. The time equation is different with them. They use it a lot.
Yeah, well, I thought that's a really kind of very interesting perspective. We think of time as this magical kind of technology or thing that can be altered only through some incredible temporal technologies, but for the galactics, this is everyday technology. I mean, like you mentioned that Thorhan actually lives 200 years in the future on the Pleiades with his beautiful bride. We won't talk about that. And he comes to Earth just to kind of like do his job with the Galactic Federation, and then he goes back to his home world, and that's 200 years in the future. So
yeah. Yes.
So I mean, he's like living two timelines. One here, he's dealing with events on Earth, but when he goes back home, it's 200 years in the future, and he's there with his bride.
Yes, absolutely. That's how they do. It's the Galactic Federation of Worlds responded to the call of the Andromedans a little bit more than 300 years in the future to come back in time to change timeline on Earth. So the Galactic Federation, which is a military organization, sent troops there, and Thoron was part of them, you know.
Yes, so that is kind of like very significant. So now we know that the Galactic Federation, Andromeda Council manipulate time. They are able to change time, or at least understand what's coming,
Yes.
and reverse engineer events so that the future timeline is preserved. And I think that was one of the things that we know Alex Collier told us about the Andromedans, saying that 300 years in the future, if action wasn't taken by the different galactic councils and federations now on Earth, that 300 years in the future, there would be a galaxy-wide tyranny. So this is part of the reason why everything has been focused on Earth, and so many galactics are here, have been here to kind of like help preserve the timeline. So now we are on this accelerated, well, I don't know if it's accelerated, but certainly we are on this path where at the moment, you know, we're using fossil fuels. We're kind of like, you know, witnessing the deep state playing all its major cards to try and confuse and distract and put the world in kind of create chaos on the planet. But behind the scenes, the galactics are preparing for this incredible future, and all of these advanced technologies are being built right now. That it's not going to be like 20 years that all these amazing technologies become available. They're here right now. It's just waiting for the deep state to kind of like be defeated and collapse. So I know you've been talking about this the last couple of years, about all of these advanced technologies being built. So do you want to kind of like address that?
Yes, well, since the moon was taken back in February 2021, taken back by the Earth Alliance from the hands, when I say the Earth Alliance, it's Solar Warden troops with the help of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. It's a conjoint operation. The moon was liberated from the hands of the Nebu, who were the Orion group, tall grays. The Dark Fleet also had assets on the moon. Everything was taken off the moon. The moon was liberated, and then the Earth Alliance took possession of the moon. And all the facilities were reused for, since then, building new technologies. There's been, since February 2021, a mass producing of med beds and medical technologies, but that's not all. There is also advanced technologies. It's very handy. You know that the moon is very hollowed. There's a lot of facilities under it. So it's not only under the surface of the moon, it's inside as well. There's a lot of room, a lot of factories in there. They can produce a lot of things, very, very efficient. I've been talking about that since then.
Well, I remember JP, who you've met, and
Yes.
A few others have met, who works with the US Army. He says that he went on several moon missions in 2021, and he recalls there being a lot of equipment being taken there, and that they were building a lot of things up there. That kind of matched the information you got about the recent liberation of the moon, and that there are a lot of new facilities being built and a lot of mass production of advanced technologies. So that was something that JP was able to confirm, and I thought that was very significant.
Yes.
So I want to go to this incident or series of incidents that happened in February, from February 4 to February 12, and those were the shoot downs of the UFOs. And these shoot downs, they all followed, like 3 of them happened in succession after the big balloon was shot down that is said to belong to China. And these 3 objects were then shot down by NORAD, which was the first time since NORAD's creation since 1958, that objects had been shot down over the US by NORAD. So that was kind of very interesting, that you have these UFOs being sighted, being shot down by orders of NORAD. Of course, it dominated the major airwaves, the mainstream media, for just over a week. And so what do you think was going on with the UFO flyovers, or these UFO objects and the shoot downs? What do you think was going on there?
Well, my first suspicion that there was something that was not as we were made believe it's when suddenly General Glenn Van Herk was on every TV talking about UFOs. And nobody heard about him before, and except that just a few days before, the week before, maybe, no, sorry, it was the 4th of February, a month before, I had identified him as the Raven Rock meeting with Ron, and suddenly was on TV everywhere. I went, wow, ooh. And talking about UFOs. Then also, why UFOs? Why not UAP? The officials of the deep state last year told us that we're not saying UFO anymore, we're saying UAP. Why? The name was UFO, so there was a hint somewhere that it wasn't the same people organizing something. And then I had this communication from Thoron, who told me something I need to tell people. There is absolutely no extraterrestrial behind the building of these crafts, alleged crafts that have been allegedly shot down. It's all Earth made by military, and that was very important. Then slowly, little by little, I got very little information on that, because it's an operation that is still ongoing related to disclosure. So it's not good to, reveal the enemy is watching. Hi, guys. Well, Thorhan told me they want, he said the deep state wants to fake an alien invasion, which won't happen. Well, all my deductions, a little bit of information I had was that the deep state planned an fake alien invasion. And we know about that. The Project Bluebeam, Werner von Braun had spoken about that. Now people know the cat is out of the bag. We know about Project Bluebeam, the holographic fake alien invasion that would scare everyone, that we would comply to a world government, etc. What is the best? I think what I believe is that the White Hats, the Earth Alliance, and I think the Raven Rock meetings were involved in this, plan to, take the ground below the enemy, play as if it was alien invasion, but turning it like it's just failing, then the deep state cannot do their own fake alien invasion. Like, Michael, you were the first person I heard mentioning, I think it was in your last webinar, about martial arts, that you take the plan, the tactic of your enemy and turn it against them. And I think that's what was going on. And the few hints that Thorhan told me would go in this direction for me.
Yeah, I thought that was very interesting, that you have this series of UFO incidents, and them all being shot down by NORAD, by General Van Herk, the very person that received this disclosure plan from Thorhan. And to me, it did look like the deep state launched some kind of event, some kind of false flag event involving UFOs, and whatever it was they were planning to do got co-opted by the White Hats, by NORAD, by General Van Herk, so that rather than putting people into fear, it actually opened people up to, well, UFOs are here, they're real, we don't know what they are. They could be extraterrestrial. We don't know. And of course, people obsessed over the UFO issue for over a week. And now it's been several weeks after the fact, and nothing has happened. So, that makes me suspect that whatever the deep state was planning to do, that, that was the initial kind of like salvo of their fake alien invasion or whatever scenario they had. But that was the kind of opening salvo, but things seem to have just been neutralized, or I mean, there are some are predicting still that there is a fake alien, or that there is a genuine alien invasion or a fake alien invasion, depending on which source you go to. But some people think that this is the groundwork has been laid, so the deep state isn't finished yet. They're still going to go forward with their second step, and so that makes me question whether or not this is part of the plan, that whatever the deep state does, the white hats respond and try and turn that around, like in a jiu-jitsu maneuver where you use the opponent's force against them. So in this case, whatever the deep state is planning, the white hats will turn that around, so that rather than people ending up being frightened and scared, confused, they end up being curious, opened, and more enlightened about UFOs.
Michael, yeah, if I may say, I have been saying that the regressive aliens had been kicked out from Earth and our star system since the end of the year 2021. And recently, who could you remind me? I forget who is this important person who validated what what I said. You remember there was an official who said that there were no more bad extraterrestrials on Earth that had been kicked out. Remember that? I don't remember who it was.
Yes, that was John Peterson from the Arlington Institute, and he said that 3 independent sources confirmed to him that negative extraterrestrials were kicked out of our solar system. And what makes John Peterson very significant is that he's not part of our community. He's not part of our UFO community. He's a futurist. He has a think tank in the Washington, D.C. that operates in that Washington, D.C. kind of beltway culture. And his institute was funded by the US Navy to look at future scenarios that would take place on the Earth and find out how people would react, how the Navy would respond. So he's a very serious person with funding from the Navy, and he's corroborating exactly what you had said.
Yes, I was very happy with that.
So yeah, that's very important. So I think it's before we move on to the next topic, I think I just want to mention that recently, someone I've worked with in the past approached me, convinced that there's going to be some kind of genuine extraterrestrial event involving these UFOs that were shot down, that this was actually an extraterrestrial event and that was negative. And so this kind of raises this issue that we just talked about, that there are no negative extraterrestrials left in our solar system, that they're being kicked out. So anyone saying that we're about to be attacked by negative extraterrestrials, they're operating out of an old paradigm. Maybe their information, whoever is feeding them that information is giving them some old dated material. Maybe they don't know what really has happened, because the deep state lie at every level to their subordinates, to their minions. So their minions might still believe that, well, our Draco overlords are still operating in our, still operating here, but that there's lies that are used to manipulate people. So, but yeah, I think it's very significant that not only you, but Alex and others have said that negative extraterrestrials have been forced to leave our solar system. And that was confirmed by John Peterson and his independent sources. So there's not going to be a negative alien invasion.
No, you wouldn't have all this technology manufactured on the moon if the regressive aliens were still there,
Exactly. All right, so now what I want to do is move on to the next topic that I thought was very interesting, and I did an interview with JP just that came out a week or so ago, where he talked about him going into an underground civilization and meeting with these human-looking beings, and that he met this 7-foot tall Nordic looking human, and this person's name was Jazit, and he escorted JP and I think there were 10 people in that mission down into this underground civilization, where they saw a big city, and adjacent to that was a Nordic extraterrestrial spaceport. So I thought you had some very interesting information about that article. So do you want to kind of like tell us how you responded to that information from JP?
Yes, well, watching your video with JP, Michael, I jumped twice on my seat because first, Jacit is Erahel name from planet Era, Taigeta system, Pleiades. And these people, it's Thorhan's race, and they are very tall, and exactly the description of the being that led JP to this underground base. So I said, yes, I heard this name already, and I know it's from planet Era in the Pleiades. I know that's originally from there. But then this name could be, and anyone could wear a Pleiadian name. But then, second thing, JP describes they enter a space where there are plants and nature, and there's a very strong smell of. He says vanilla, but he said something a little bit like that seems like vanilla. So it's like vanilla, but a little bit different. And I just jumped on my chair because in 2018, when I was taken back again on board Thorhan's scout ship in November 2018, I hadn't seen him for years. So we gave a hug to each other, and he smelled vanilla. But my reaction was something a little bit like vanilla. Same word, same impression. And then he explained to me later that a day or so before, a cargo ship had arrived from the Pleiades, and he acquired this essence smelling vanilla because on planet Era, it's the national flower. It's called Oshksha. It's a red flower, and it produces vanilla scent, very strong. And the planet Era, they are very proud of this flower. So takes me back to JP's story. If it was really Erahel from Era, of course they would have brought their favorite flowers with them if they had to live for a long time underground in this space. That was interesting.
Yeah, it was very interesting because he described this city populated by these Nordic, 7-foot tall, Nordic human-looking beings, and then you had the spaceport, and he kind of said, well, the Nordics. He described the city as like, okay, with these very tall human-looking people there, and then he said, well, next to the city is this spaceport that the city is working with the spaceport. So I mean, are we talking about an ancient underground civilization that's been there for tens of thousands of years, and that they are working with the Nordics that have fleets of spacecraft there, or are we talking about a colony from Erahel that is there? I mean, what do you think that city was?
I think it's a colony, and it may be very recent. It may be an outpost, an underground base, as the Federation has underground bases a little bit everywhere on the planet. So, to my understanding, after JP's description, to me it was an underground facility.
Okay, all right. Well, yeah, I thought that was very interesting, and by the way, JP also mentioned that when he was taken into this underwater city in the Atlantic Ocean, very close to where the space ark was. He said he was taken down by this submarine, by a submarine belonging to the Nordics, that he was taken down to the bottom, and there was kind of like 3 huge domes with cities underneath, not far from the ark, and the cities were populated by these very tall human-looking beings. He said that he said that again he smelt vanilla in the craft belonging to the Nordic, that this submarine that went down there had vanilla. So again,
Wow.
this raises a very interesting possibility. Could that be could that be an ancient Earth colony at the bottom of the ocean? Could this be an offshoot or of an Arahel colony that's been there for a long time or recently?
There was an Arahel colony in Atlantis, but when there was this whole cataclysm, everything got destroyed. So it would be a colony that went back to settle again and build a solid facility at the bottom of the ocean, I suppose. I know the Galactic Federation of Worlds has 3 or more. I know about three or more facilities under the Atlantic Ocean. So, and there's one there next there. So maybe that. I don't know more.
Okay, well, I want to show you a photograph that JP took of a flying saucer with 2 Nordics in it in 2018 when he was living in Orlando, Florida, because he says that when he was in this underground city with the spaceport near it, just earlier this month, or earlier, sorry, in January, where he was taken down there, he described seeing hundreds of these craft all lined up at the spaceport, and that they were very busy. And he described how they would be revealing themselves over the months ahead and the years ahead, just to kind of like acclimate people. So I thought I'd show you this because I wanted to see if you have seen this kind of craft before. So there it is. It is a it's a saucer-shaped craft, and he says that there was a kind of cockpit area, and to the left-hand corner, I mean, it's blurry, but in the left-hand corner, you can just barely make out 2 figures. And he says that these were Nordics, 2 Nordics. So this is what makes JP kind of like stand out amongst the crowd of people sharing a lot of information, that he's got all these photos that he's taken over the years of these crafts. So have you seen that craft before?
Yes, I have. It actually looks like an Alpha Centaurian scout ship, but I've seen them also there was a landing bay on the Excelsior the day I was taken with Thorhan to touch the belly of a scout ship. I described that in one of my books. There it was a big hangar bay on board the Excelsior, the mothership of the Federation upstairs. And there were these ones. I saw a lineup of these ones, and they didn't look like the Pleiadian scout ships that Thorhan drives. Now, what I was told at the time is that there's a type of scout ship by DNA and races. So the beautiful profiled 2 saucer-shaped, what we call Pleiadian scout ships that the Federation uses, it's for Ahel and Tal DNA. It's for Pleiadian DNA, so this group. Earth people cannot pilot them because they don't have enough of it. So they have hybrid craft that can be piloted by Nordic aliens, Pleiadians, or who else, and Earth people, because the DNA is very different. So it's different. And it was the same. It had nearly no ridge around, a very thin and small. And it was like square, flat, round. So it really looks like these ones. So that would be the craft used by the Earth Alliance, I suppose, by deduction.
Well, that is very interesting. I mean, because what we have now is a better idea of the types of craft that some involved with the Galactic Federation. I mean, the Arahel, with through this underground base and the spaceport there, that they have a lot of craft there that they're going to fly out. So to raise awareness, to kind of get people used to seeing flying saucer craft. I mean, JP said that this was what he was told, that this was the plan. So again, it's like, well, there's a plan here, a plan to acclimate people. So this takes us back to General Van Herk and the plan that he was given. So that plan that he was given, maybe that includes what JP witnessed, that this is part of the process, that JP is part of that disclosure initiative, because I mean, he's being allowed to talk. I mean, he's serving currently in the US Army, being taken on these missions, and he's being encouraged to talk about it by his covert superiors. So whatever plan is in existence, I mean, he seems to be a key part of that.
Yes, I believe so too. Yes.
Well, I think now maybe we can go to one of these other really interesting topics that you've raised. And I know I recently interviewed Chris O'Connor, and he's talking about his involvement or his recollection of the Saturn agreements that he recently recalled being involved in these negotiations to hand back Saturn and the moons of Saturn from the Anunnaki to the Earth Alliance. So you want to tell us all about the Saturn agreements?
Yeah, so what as many people know, I am in contact with Ia, who is also known as Enki, and he told me that one of the reasons why he came back is since the star system was liberated from the regressive extraterrestrials, he came back at the same moment as with the Cedars, a little bit before, and it was to bring back, give back to the Earth Alliance the template, the frequency key of the Adamic original DNA to the Earth Alliance. And also I knew that afterwards, that to give back Saturn to the solar system, because every time before all the Anunnaki, the Cedar arrived, every time we were passing by Saturn with Thorhan in the ship, we needed always to avoid Saturn and go around. And he would never tell me why. He said, there's a secret there, there's a big secret, there's a big secret. Okay, so by Ia, I knew that, I learned that there was a technology on Saturn that was very, very powerful and harmful. And this technology was Anunnaki and Gray technology, Orion Gray Nebu technology. They had done something put together. So that's why nobody needed to know that this powerful technology was there. And also, Saturn was a concession of the negative faction of the Anunnaki. Okay, Marduk and Enlil. They owned Saturn. It was the last stronghold of the Anunnaki in our star system, and nobody had the right to go near. It was very delimited. You could go on Saturn's moons, but not pass the inner ring. You couldn't. That was the borderline. So then Marduk and Enlil were defeated, and there was this big council with Anu at the request of the Galactic Alliance, which is composed of the Andromedans, the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and other minor organizations, positive, to put an end to Enlil and the star system, to take him away. And that was after this council that Enki, as an Anunnaki prince, son of Anu, had the right to the custody of Saturn. And then as soon as he had it, he passed it on to the Earth Alliance. He said, that's it. I don't want it. I don't want it. It's a sign that now your star system is totally yours. So these agreements to pass the custody of Saturn from Anunnaki power to Earth people, Earth Alliance for the moment, what happened on the moon Mimas. It's the most inner moon. And Mimas is a bit like Ganymede. There's a lot of different ET groups represented there. It's a little moon, but inside it's very hollowed. And it happened there. There was a big council and representatives of Earth, and Ea was there, and other ETs involved in the star system. And that's when it happened. I do not know the detail of these agreements. I wasn't, I didn't have the privilege to witness it, but it concerned also anything that was Anunnaki related in this star system was just cut ties and given back to Earth or destroyed, or that was the end of any ties with the Anunnaki. That was it.
So we're talking about two sets of meetings concerning the Anunnaki. The first one, I remember Alex Collier contacting me saying that he had just gotten news from the Andromeda Council that that Anu, the king of the Anunnaki, had been summoned before all the councils to account or to look into what crimes Enlil had done within our solar system, and that this led to Enlil being brought up and being shown to be kind of like imprisoned, or at least in some kind of custody, and he was very unhappy. And so that meeting and the outcome of that led to this second set of meetings on Mimas, where the custody of Saturn and the bases there and the moons were handed over from the Anunnaki to the Earth Alliance. So is that correct, that there were
Yes.
two separate meetings, and different sources have reported on this, and you and Chris O'Connor saw the meeting on Mimas, which actually led to the handing over of Saturn and the moons to the Earth Alliance?
Yes, you are very correct, Michael. That's how it happened. Once Enlil was cut from the star system and the custody of Saturn, he lost it. Then the custody passed to Enki, and Enki, as soon as he had it, passed it on to the Earth Alliance. And this happened on Mimas.
While we're on the subject of the Anunnaki, Ea and Enlil and Anu, I remember one of the pieces of information that you kind of shared some time ago was that the way the Anunnaki maintain longevity is very different to the way it's done amongst the other extraterrestrials. That other extraterrestrials, they may live for 1,000, 3,000, or even 10,000 years, but then at the end of that incarnation, they simply go through the death and rebirth process where their memories are intact, but they start off in a new body and they're living again. Whereas the Anunnaki do it by cloning, where they just clone, that they create these cloned bodies that have these very long lives, but towards the end of that life, because their cloning is so good, so advanced, they're able to just transfer their consciousness from one clone to another, so they don't go through the kind of like death and rebirth cycle. So you want to kind of like just elaborate on that and why there is this kind of difference?
Yes. People ask me, but Enki must be very old. It's not possible 400,000 years ago. It's not the same body. And the Anunnaki master genetics, absolutely master it. But beyond that, the seeders as well. But what the Anunnaki excel in, above the seeders even, it's alchemy. The alchemy of consciousness, the universal alchemy, and they know that perfectly, the alchemy of the soul. So they have no problem to jump consciousness from avatar to avatar while in the same existence. These giants, bearded giants, when we see representations of the Anunnaki in the ancient artifacts and sites, these were avatars, because the Anunnaki physiology cannot live on our planet in the conditions of gravity, atmosphere, etc. So they had these avatars that they made even bigger to really impress and be strong and enslave people, etc. But it wasn't them. The Anunnaki don't look like these bearded giants. They look like very skinny, tall humans. Well, you have different species, different races among them. Anyway, they use, so they clone their bodies, their original body, they clone it, and when the clone, it's not a synthetic, it's a biological body. It's not a synthetic body clone. It's a biological clone. It's the biological copy of themselves. It's a biological body. And when it arrives to the end of it, because it's never, biology is never eternal, they transfer their consciousness to a new one. And Enki explained to me that to prolongate the biology of a clone, the lifespan, because it's not synthetic, to prolongate the lifespan and postpone the degradation and the aging of the avatar, they use monoatomic gold. And when they are very old and they've been using this monoatomic gold for a very long time, ingesting it and passing it on the body, mixing it with an oil, they start to shine. They glow, they shine. So when you see Anunnaki with a shiny skin, glittery, a bit like glitter, it's monoatomic gold that's been used a lot, that does that to their genetics. It wouldn't do the same for us, but to their genetics does that.
So is that the alchemical process? I mean, I'm just kind of like wanting to get a little bit of clarity on how the Anunnaki and how Ea uses alchemical processes to prolong life. I mean, is the monatomic gold the key part of that alchemic process?
Yes, because it's not only about the substance, it's a binding the substance with, explain to me, this type of, he employed the term geometry of the soul. It's really strange. I wouldn't be able to explain it very well, there's monatomic gold is the substance. Then it is done playing with frequencies and genetics. Genetics are frequencies, and there are encoding that can lock the hydrogen bonds and get them stable and really lock them. And that is done with frequencies, and frequencies that are also geometry. It's not waves of frequencies, it's patterns, geometrical patterns. That is the shape of the frequency. If I don't know if I can explain it better.
Okay, well, I know it's a very complex process. I remember reading Radu Cinema talking about how the cloning or at least the creation of new genetic experiments involves understanding the significance of celestial bodies. So astrology is a key part of all of that. So yeah, it seems that this is a key part of the alchemical process is astrology, and the position of the heavenly bodies and even artificial bodies like Nibiru could play a role in this.
That reminds me that when I asked Ea Enki, when you engineered more activated humans, the planetary matrix, soul matrix of the planet at the time was at a certain type of evolution. How did you manage to get soul of a higher frequency, of a higher evolution, to embody these people that you engineered, these new humans? Because it must have come from somewhere else. And he said to me, oh, yes, we are doing that with the position of the stars. And in another conversation, he said that they're creating pathways through the stars. for the journey of the soul to embody a body. So that's interesting.
One of the people we're both interviewed is Mark Domizio, who spent a lot of time at Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. And he talked about soul splitting, how his soul was split and an essence, part of the essence of his soul was transferred from his original body into these clones. And then after he was taken back to his normal timeline, two of his clones contained soul extracts, and one went to Diego Garcia and was there for like 34 years, and the other one went to Mars, and he says that one was there for about 38 years. So, what is this kind of soul splitting technology, the kind of technology that Enlil gave to the deep state?
So no, because this type of technology is unnatural. It's unnatural. It's not something that is according to the laws of the universe. Enki, as a scientist, an alchemist, and geneticist, he works with the frequency of love, the frequency of source, to be able to create life and engineer bodies. He works in accordance to the laws of the universe and source frequency, which is equivalent to love. He wouldn't harm anyone. He wouldn't do something harmful. Soul splitting is a reptilian, Draco-reptilian technology that is used to, as they did to Mark, split someone into different avatars, clones, and use them for whatever reason. That's very handy. That is unnatural, and all of the fragments suffer. Now that reminds me to my shamanic training, because I trained to become a shaman, and I've learned how to do soul retrieval. And that's from now the ancient traditions of Earth. It is said that when a soul can split when there is a trauma, and especially when you're young, when you are traumatized, a part of your soul can stay embedded somewhere. And a shaman would go and find these pieces of soul and retrieve to the original soul, which is the natural state. So that was interesting. So no, it's not Enki would never have done that or given that. And I know that's a CCAR technology.
Okay, yeah, I know. I remember Alex Collier giving lectures back in the 1990s, where he talked about the Dows or the Greys or Orion Greys being able to extract the soul out of children and put them into these small containers, and they would then ship them off. And this was like a slave trade, but you're trading soul essence. Is that so? That sounds like that grey technology is probably a hand-me-down from the Draco. Is that what you're saying?
So yes, that's something different. Again, the Draco technology is to split soul. They do soul scalping as well, but what we were talking about with the clones was a scattering of the soul in different pieces. Now, what you just mentioned, it's something else. It's soul scalping. That means taking a soul in its globality off a body and putting it in a containers. The Draco do that, CCAR, and the Nebu Tall Greys do that. So that's the difference, yes.
So while we're on the subject of the Nebu Greys, now you've recently got information that the Orion Queen that is in charge or was in charge of the Nebu Greys has recently died, and that the Nebu are now in different states of chaos because some are wanting to rebel, get their independence, and others presumably are trying to fill the power vacuum, and that there's a lot of chaos in the Orion Grey Empire. So what do you know about that?
In the code of the hive, the super hive, Orion hive, was cracked back in October 2021, if I remember well. Yes. So a signal was sent to the hive because the Federation had captured tall gray aliens, so the Eban trying to escape. And because they had them, they managed to crack the connection to the hive and sent back something, a signal that dismantled the whole, collapsed the whole hive. The queen was a compound of a creation of a compound of different planetary hive queens. So you can imagine the Orion zone, there's a lot of grays, different civilizations of grays, and each they are hive consciousness, most of them, and they have their planetary hive consciousness. Then the Eban come and say, oh, let's merge all our queens together to a super queen, then we will all be interfaced and we'll be super powerful empire. So they all done that, coerced or not. So this super queen was dismantled and just withered and fell into pieces, and now she's non-existent. She was like a big AI, we could say that to understand it. Now what happened, all the grays were disconnected, and there was a moment where they re-merged like the laws of the universe to their planetary hives originally. They came back to re-merge their consciousness to their planetary hives. They were a little bit lost for a while, but nature, the universe did that naturally. Now that is just being stable now. That's it. But there's a lot going on, and everyone is extremely busy up there, because we need to take care that the planetary hives reforming do it well, that nothing goes to interfere it, and like, you know, an enemy coming and trying to take care of these grays who are a bit lost, and that they do not reform to be a potential enemy again also, you know. Because they cannot kill all the grays. It's not how they do, you know. Then, yeah, there's this. And also, there, now that, you know, the big tyrant is gone, well, now there's room for the little thugs and the little thieves organizations to try to take the you know, the vacuum, the void, and take the place and take advantage, while all these civilizations that were under the slavery of the grays are just, you know, celebrating their freedom and trying to reorganize into let's reform a society, a government, you know. All these star systems, there's so many star systems that were under the rulership of the Orion Nebu Grays. Well, suddenly they're free, but I mean, they need to just go back on their feet and resettle in a stable government and etc. And that takes time, and they are fragile. And I met with Torhan last night, and he told me about all of this, that the Federation had a tremendous work to do by helping all these star systems to defend against the infiltration of new, like it would be kind of mafia, you know, organization, this type of things, which is, I understood, and yeah, that makes sense, you know. So, and now it's the Council of Five who is in charge of the Orion zone. So,
well, I remember from the Alex Collier material that, I mean, he talked about the Earth being seeded by up to 22 different extraterrestrial civilizations, and he said part of the reason for that was that the Galactics wanted to see how humanity would work out their problems, because our problems mirrored the Galactics' problems at a high level. That, in other words, there was a kind of like a hermetic law, you know, as above, so below, that the Earth, with all the multiplicity of races and approaches and histories and all of that mirrored in a way what was happening in the galaxy. And that's why the Galactics were here to kind of, you know, push their agenda and try to kind of bring an outcome that they wanted. And so if that's correct, then the Earth is a microcosm of the bigger galactic equation, then it seems that what we have just gone through, where the deep state has lost its overlords, that the regressive ETs have had to flee, and the deep state is now just the former minions desperately holding on to power, doing their final false flag, playing their final false flag cards, with nothing really happening that's going to succeed. That in a way that mirrors what's happening in the bigger picture, in the galactic picture that you've described, this Orion Queen gone, and now all of a sudden civilizations all over the galaxy are reverting back to their kind of like sovereign planetary cultures.
Yes, and that's reminds me what you're saying, Michael. Someday, Una, who is part of the Cedar races, told me, "Oh, Earth was our greatest experiment." So that when she said that, she was very exalted. It was our greatest experiment. She was like this. Yeah, and it's exactly what's happening. And what? That's why the Federation is here with the Earth Alliance on Earth, really severely holding everything, because once the deep state is down, there must not be room for other thugs organizations, so it's all well locked. Then we're not in that danger. I was told that what happened by Thorhan, what will happen on Earth, with Earth, and in the star system, will be decisive for the whole galaxy. He knew that from the future. And I went, how a little planet halfway near the border of the arm of the galaxy is going to influence the fate of the whole galaxy. I couldn't get it until the Eban Greys, these Eban Greys were caught, and the crack of the code of the hive Orion hive was cracked, and thanks to what happened in our star system, these Ebans who were on Earth in Dulce base and who escaped, they were caught, and because of that, it collapsed the Nebu Empire and it affected the whole galaxy. And that's how what happened on Earth saved the whole galaxy. And then I understood it, but I couldn't know before that was going to happen. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is very interesting how the Earth experiment, or multiple experiments, were set up for us to be like a microcosm of the macrocosm. And so, yeah, Hermetic law, it does apply. And what we're witnessing at the moment on Earth and our solar system is a mirror for what's happening around the galaxy. So I just wanted to kind of like start wrapping it up and maybe get your thoughts on space arcs. I mean, any latest information? I know I've recently had information from JP saying that the space arcs are going to start activating or floating after humanity has been prepared, lots of ships being seen. We have Jean-Charles Moyen saying that he was taken to a space arc under Mount Fuji in Japan, and then teleported to another space arc under Mauna Kea on the big island of Hawaii. So any information you have about space arcs and when they might be activating?
From space arcs are from different groups. You have Anunnaki space arcs, you have Cedars, different people space arcs, you have other species, culture space arcs as well, but mains are Cedars and Anunnaki. This technology, it has been activated, but it's at the moment held back until the deep state is harmless or really collapsed. Because if this technology reveals itself, it must not fall in the wrong hands. They're always constantly saying this. So for the moment, it's held back. We are still, but they are accessible to people who, have access, like JP, like Jean-Charles, and they can access them because they have the right DNA and access the technology. that's something, you know, go back to our like a circle that I was talking about the Freemason at the start. Why they held all these sites in Egypt, because they wanted to have access to a technology that they couldn't start because they never had the right DNA. And it reminds us to an evil character on Earth who was working with the Draco reptilians, who hunted for tall blonde DNA and certain DNA marker interested by technology, and, you know, linked with Antarctica. I don't want to name names here, but I let people, you know, so that's interesting.
Okay. Well, just to finish up, I know you have some interesting information about Neptune. So do you want to give anyone a teaser for what you recently encountered and where they can, or when they can learn about that?
Well, I am actually in the process of getting more and more information, and I will unveil the whole thing when I have all the information, because otherwise, you know, it's not great. You need the whole thing. Well, when I was taken on Neptune last year by Thoran and his friend Seladion, who works on a mining station in the rings of Neptune. Neptune has rings, which was discovered afterwards I went there. That's always excellent. And they took me through. First, they took me in through kind of dimensional shift, but it was still on Neptune. We were under the ocean. We went under the water on Neptune, and there was an underwater base, and there were people named the Coldaci, who are also on Jupiter and Venus in the star system. The Coldaci are a race on their own, and they're not part of the Federation. They're on their own. They're very mysterious. They are people with green skin and like tentacle hair, big eyes, and they took me. The guy said they want to show you something. They want to teach you, to show you something. They took me. So the Coldaci took me through a portal in the base, big white light, and I spent. I can listen, Michael. It's the first I'm saying this here. I spent 2 months with them, and they brought me back, and they showed me. They told me about all the ancient ruins that are in this star system. Before the Cedars, this star system had visitors that are not involved at all with anything that happened on Earth. So they're out of what we've always been talking about. More ancient visitors. And they told me about these visitors, and they linked with the Coldaci. That's why they're still here. So I will bring this information. It's not linked to the exopolitics current event, so it won't add more information to what we're living. But it's, as an archaeologist, I'm over the moon.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I'm very, very interested in that as well. This kind of like a pre-Cedar civilization that existed in our solar system. That'll be amazing to learn about. So I know you got a webinar coming up on March 19. So you want to tell us about that? This will be your 3rd webinar. So tell us about what you think, what you'll be covering.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I always give the updates of everything I'm talking about on YouTube, notably, and I go really in depth. I will surely speak about Giza and the discoveries in Giza and Egyptian archaeology. I'm going to speak about that. I'm going to go more in details about pretty much what we've been speaking about tonight. The Earth Alliance and all these things, the Anunnaki and the Cedars. So a lot to cover, but I really look forward now to the Q&A, because there will be there's a 1 hour and a half Q&A where I answer people's questions. And I chose this because YouTube censors a lot, and on Crowdcast it's fantastic because I can talk about everything freely, and so that's a great adventure. I start to enjoy that, and as once a month, and great stuff.
Well, yeah, I highly recommend that to people.
Thank
so just go to Elena's website, Elena Danaan,